disoriented man in military fatigues wakes in the woods beside a dog with no clear memory of who he is or how he got there. His dog tags identify him as Brian Hunt. When a strange mist rolls in, the dog runs toward it, and Brian follows, only to discover the animal brutally killed and hung skinned from a tree. Shaken, he makes his way into the nearby town of Bridgeville, Maine, trying to warn people that something dangerous is moving inside the mist. The police treat him as a threat rather than a witness and lock him in a holding cell while they investigate the arrowhead insignia on his uniform. Elsewhere in town, high school teacher Eve Copeland is suspended after clashing with conservative parents over a sex education lesson. Tension at home is already high between Eve and her husband Kevin, especially over how strictly to control their teenage daughter Alex. Kevin secretly allows Alex to attend a football party with her friend Adrian Garf. At the party, Alex drinks heavily and later wakes with no memory of what happened. Distressed, she tells her parents she believes she was raped and says Adrian told her it was Jay Heisel, the school's star quarterback. Alex admits she blacked out and cannot remember everything clearly, but the accusation immediately sets off outrage in the small town. Jay's father, Connor Heisel, is the local police chief, and the Copelands quickly feel the town turning against them. Kevin goes to the police station to report the harassment and is kept there while Adrian is questioned. At the same time, strange disturbances begin to spread as the mist approaches the town. In parallel, a hardened woman named Mia Lambert is shown in a violent struggle that ends with her killing a man who attacks her. She is later arrested for breaking into a storage facility connected to stolen money and documents and is taken to the police station where she is also locked up. As the mist moves closer, Natalie Raven notices animals behaving oddly and searches old newspapers at the library with her husband, suspecting something unnatural is happening. When they leave, visibility drops rapidly. A panicked man emerges from the fog, babbling incoherently, shoots Natalie's husband in the face, and then kills himself. Traumatized and alone, Natalie stumbles into a nearby church, where Father Romanoff offers her shelter as the mist fully engulfs the town. Power and communications begin to fail. At the police station, one officer wanders outside into the fog to film it, and is swarmed by insects that mutilate his face. He staggers back inside, violently attacking Kevin before collapsing. With Connor absent, Kevin unlocks the holding cells to free Brian and Mia. Mia takes a gun and shoots the injured officer to stop him, making it clear that whatever is in the mist can infect or transform people. Meanwhile, Eve and Alex attempt to leave town but stop at the mall so Eve can pick up medication. They argue bitterly in the parking lot, and Eve slaps Alex before the mist rolls in and traps them inside with other townspeople. Inside the mall, a hostile parent publicly accuses Alex of lying about her assault. When the power fails, Alex briefly becomes separated from Eve near the entrance, and Eve runs into the fog to pull her back inside. Against warnings, the woman and her son step into the mist, and moments later her mutilated body is slammed against the glass before being dragged away by something unseen. By the end of the episode, Bridgeville is completely swallowed by the mist. Survivors are divided into isolated groups. Kevin remains at the police station with Adrian, Brian, and Mia. Natalie shelters at the church with Father Romanoff, and Eve and Alex are trapped in the mall, where Alex realizes that Jay Heisel is also among those sheltering there, forcing her to remain close to the boy she is accused as the danger outside continues to grow. Bridgeville wakes up to the reality that the mist isn't going anywhere. Inside the police station, Kevin Copeland and the small group sheltering with him, Brian Hunt, Mia Lambert, and teenage Adrian Garf, try to make sense of the bodies and damage left behind after the previous night's chaos. The phones are out, the building feels unsafe, and Kevin argues their best chance is getting to the mall, where there should be supplies and where his family might be. Before they leave, Mia sneaks into evidence looking for drugs, and Brian catches her. He recognizes she is an addict, but promises not to expose her to Kevin. At the mall, Eve Copeland and her daughter Alex are now part of a growing crowd attempting to organize itself under mall manager Gus Bradley and security staff. Eve describes what she witnessed the night before, something in the mist dragging away a dying woman, and the group works to seal entrances to keep whatever is outside from getting in. While securing the building, Eve, Alex, and Kimmy notice an interior corridor filled with mist. Through it, they see a brutally mauled body, confirming that something violent is moving through the fog. Tensions rise when suspicion turns toward a store owner, but Eve insists the mist is not a chemical leak, pointing out that she and Alex ran through it without being poisoned. Kevin's group leaves the police station in a squad car and drives into the mist. On the road, a man emerges from the fog with a gun and attempts to force them out of the vehicle. Mia accelerates, striking him and driving erratically until she clips another car. The squad car flips and lands upside down, injured but alive. The group escapes the wreck and stumbles through the mist toward the sound of church bells. As they move, Mia sees an older woman she recognizes calling her baby doll, a vision she cannot explain and barely has time to process. The bells lead them to a church where Father Romanoff has gathered frightened townspeople, including Chief Connor and Nathalie Raven. Kevin's arrival sparks a confrontation with Connor, whom Kevin and Mia accuse of abandoning them at the station. Connor insists he waited and only fled when the danger became clear. The argument escalates until Connor handcuffs Mia near the altar. With little food available, the group shares what they can. Nathalie offers wine and tells a story about her late husband, Benedict, as the survivors drink together in uneasy solidarity. Brian later brings Mia more wine, and she drinks heavily. He quietly admits that he too saw the woman in the mist, confirming Mia's vision was not imagined. Back at the mall, a newcomer named Clint claims there is an emergency radio in a mist-filled administrative corridor. Alex suggests using a drone to scout the area, and Jay flies it down the hallway. The drone reveals a dead security guard and bloody writing on the wall before becoming stuck. With no better option, Gus organizes a lottery to choose someone to retrieve the radio. Eve is selected, and Clint insists on accompanying her. Eve and Clint run through the corridor and recover the radio from the security office. Clint contacts someone over the radio, identifying himself with a military-style call sign and requesting Arrowhead. When Eve insists on returning the radio to the group, Clint pulls a gun and refuses. A struggle follows, and Eve shoots him. She returns to the mall alone, lying that she lost Clint and that the radio was useless. That night, she hides the gun while the mall settles into uneasy rest. The episode ends with Jay discovering two men hanging dead in a bathroom, revealing that Clint was not acting alone and that further danger is still unfolding. Inside the mall, the survivors deal with the grim discovery from the bathroom. Gus, Jay, and the security guard Kyle cut down the two hanging bodies and find United States Army dog tags on them, tying the dead men to the same Arrowhead-connected group that appeared earlier. Gus has the corpses moved to a freezer to slow decomposition, then insists on checking everyone else for dog tags to see if there are more soldiers among them. A fourth member of the soldiers' group panics and tries to flee, which only deepens suspicion. Cornered, he claims he is a low-ranking private with no useful information, but the implication is clear that the soldiers believe they understood the danger in the mist and chose suicide over facing it. Tensions rise further when two young men from the game store decide to drag the soldiers' bodies toward the parking lot and use them as bait to draw out whatever is lurking outside. The surviving private is outraged, and the argument nearly turns violent before Gus forces everyone to stand down. With fear and disorder spreading, Gus pushes the group toward establishing firm rules for survival, food rationing, limits on looting, and punishment for anyone who puts the group at risk. Kyle openly suggests that exile into the mist should be the penalty for endangering others, sparking heated debate over whether such a rule would be justice or murder. At the same time, Alex's emotional state continues to deteriorate. Trapped in the same space as Jay, the boy she is accused of raping her, she is visibly anxious and unstable. Eve tries to keep them apart by relocating their sleeping area and sending Alex out on errands, but Jay corners Alex anyway. He insists that he did not rape her, claiming that the night in question involved him covering her with a blanket after she drank too much. He presses her to let him touch her hand, and although Alex allows it briefly out of fear, she quickly pulls away. Shaken, she tells Eve what happened, and Eve makes it clear she will not allow Jay anywhere near her daughter again. As Gus's meeting turns toward a vote on enforcing harsh punishments, Eve openly rejects the direction the group is taking. She refuses to be part of a system that could condemn people to death, and she gathers a small group willing to break away. Gus warns that splitting up will make everyone less safe, but the separation happens anyway. During the tense departure, Jay again approaches Alex, demanding that she recant her accusation. Eve responds by drawing a gun and forcing him to back off, then leads her group to a warehouse area of the mall. Once settled, Alex suggests sending messages for help by tying notes to balloons and releasing them into the mist, hoping someone outside might find them. Elsewhere in town, Kevin remains convinced that Eve and Alex are alive and searches for a way to reach them. At the church, he argues that Mia can hotwire an abandoned car and presses Connor to release Mia, Brian, and Jonah so they can leave. Connor refuses and keeps the prisoners locked in the basement. Downstairs, Brian frees Mia from her restraints and returns the pills she stole. He admits he remembers almost nothing about his past before the mist, aside from the death of his dog, and Mia breaks down, saying she wishes she could forget her own past as completely. Upstairs, Adrian speaks with Father Romanoff about fear, faith, and his abusive father, and Romanov reassures him that God loves him. That reassurance is undermined when Connor confronts Adrian, accusing him of lying about what happened to Alex and berating him for failing to stop it. Connor escalates into cruel taunts about Eve and Alex, provoking Kevin to attack him. Connor subdues Kevin and throws him into the basement with the others. The church is shaken further when Nathalie, grieving her husband, speaks with a young man who has a large moth tattoo. She describes strange signs she noticed before the mist, and suggests something similar happened in the town long ago. Soon after, Nathalie walks into the mist, seemingly intent on dying. The tattooed man follows her and is attacked by something unseen. A moth forces its way into his ear, and he violently mutates before dying in front of the congregation. Nathalie staggers back inside, claiming she saw God, making it clear her vision does not align with Romanov's teachings. Amid the chaos, Adrian asks Father Romanov to baptize him. As the priest forces him to repeatedly repent, Adrian uses the moment to steal the basement keys. He frees Kevin, Mia, Brian, and Jonah, and they rush toward the exit. Connor catches them, but Kevin overpowers him and takes his gun. By the end of the episode, Kevin leads the others out of the church and into the mist in a desperate attempt to find his family. Kevin, Mia, Brian, and Adrian flee the church and race through the fog toward a nearby car. But Kevin trips over the body of a dead boy lying in the street. They manage to get inside the vehicle, but Mia discovers it will not start. As the mist briefly thins, they abandon the car and run to a nearby gas station to take shelter. Inside the mall, Gus tries to keep people calm by organizing small distractions, while suspicion and hostility toward Jay continue to build over Alex's death. Eve's smaller group eats quietly in the dark, trying to maintain a sense of normalcy. Alex spends time with a frightened young girl named Leela, promising to take her to the bookstore to find a children's book that might comfort her. Back at the church, Father Romanov grows more confident in his belief that the mist is a divine judgment, while Nathalie becomes increasingly focused on finding meaning in signs and patterns. She keeps a spider alive in a jar, convinced it is connected to what is happening. Sheriff Connor watches her behavior closely, worried about her mental state and the influence these beliefs may have on the group. At the gas station, Kevin's group encounters Clay, a man wearing a gas mask and carrying a gun. Clay has a working vehicle and is searching desperately for his missing son. When he shows them a photo, it becomes clear that the boy is the corpse Kevin tripped over earlier. Kevin asks Clay to take them to the mall, but Clay refuses, still clinging to the hope that his son might be alive. When Mia forces Kevin to tell the truth, Clay becomes hysterical and violent. During the struggle that follows, Clay accidentally shoots Brian in the leg. Meanwhile, two men from the mall, Vic and Todd, attempt to retrieve bodies from outside using a harpoon gun. The plan goes wrong when Todd disappears into the mist, and his mutilated body is thrown back toward the entrance. Mist pours into the bookstore where Alex and Lila are hiding. A dark, humanoid presence moves within it, and Lila is suddenly disintegrated into ash before everyone's eyes. Alex barely escapes alive. The horrifying death pushes the mall community over the edge, and Vic is blamed for the failed mission. The group holds an impromptu trial and ultimately forces Vic out of the mall and into the mist. Kevin Copeland, Mia Lambert, Adrian Garf, and Brian Hunt race from the gas station to the local hospital with Brian bleeding from a gunshot wound to the leg. The building still has power, and the staff are working, but the situation is fraying. The doctor who treats Brian warns that the hospital is running on a generator that may only last another day or two, and that the mist has already swallowed the east wing. Once Brian is stabilized and moved out of the ear, the group splits up in the maze of corridors and crowded waiting areas. Kevin immediately starts searching for his wife, Eve, and their daughter, Alex, asking nurses and frightened survivors if they've seen them. No one has. Shaken and exhausted, he ducks into an empty room to collect himself and finds his estranged older brother, Mike, lying in a hospital bed in agony, impaled through the stomach by a length of rebar. Mike claims a pack of kids attacked him and, impossibly, knew intimate details from his past, including that he once beat up a boy named Ricky. Mike is convinced the mist is prying into people's heads and turning what it finds into punishment. He's also blunt about his own condition. The rebar is the only thing keeping him from bleeding out, and without proper surgery he's going to die. Nearby, Brian wakes up groggy but alive. Mia hovers close, briefly taking his hand before pulling back, and Adrian, uncomfortable with the intimacy and with the cramped room, steps out. Wandering the hospital, Mia stops at the gift shop, buys a stuffed bear, and notices a dead employee in the back office, another sign that parts of the building have already collapsed into quiet chaos. When she goes looking for Brian Hunt again, she's stunned to find a different man in a room whose chart clearly reads Brian Hunt, the real Brian Hunt. Thinking fast, Mia lies that she works at the hospital and questions him. Him, he says he was attacked at Arrowhead and describes the man using his identity, Jonah Dixon. Adrian has his own collision with the past. He runs into Tyler, one of the boys who mocked and harassed him earlier. Adrian follows Tyler into a restroom and kisses him. Tyler responds with a beating and slurs. Bloodied but defiant, Adrian kisses him again anyway, then leaves the bathroom bruised and reeling. Kevin, meanwhile, refuses to leave Mike to die. The doctor explains that the operating room is in the mist, choked east wing, effectively cut off. Kevin insists on taking Mike through anyway and, when no surgeon will go with them, persuades the doctor to guide him remotely over a headset. Kevin wheels Mike toward the contaminated wing, then pushes deeper through shadowed halls lined with bodies. In the operating room, one of the few clean pockets left, Kevin follows instructions step by step, numbing the wound, cutting around the rebar, pulling it free, packing the bleeding, and stapling Mike back up before he can exsanguinate. Mike stays conscious through the ordeal, alternating between sarcasm, fear, and bitter admissions about his hatred for Kevin and his fixation on Eve. Intercut with the grim present are glimpses of Kevin and Eve before the disaster, moving into their house, trying to be happy, and navigating Eve's restless sense that she's lost who she used to be. One flashback lands like a confession. Kevin confronts Eve about Alex's paternity and makes her promise never to tell their daughter that Kevin isn't her biological father. After the surgery, Kevin rushes Mike back through the mist toward safety, but the building turns on them again. Kevin slips, the gurney careens away, and something drops from the ceiling, swarms of leeches. They latch onto both men, but they overwhelm Mike, crawling into his fresh incision and covering him completely. Kevin can't pull them off fast enough. With Mike suffering and beyond saving, Kevin ends it with a gunshot. Elsewhere in the hospital, Jonah, still posing as Brian Hunt despite his injury, gets out of bed, asks after Mia, and follows the trail to the room where the real Brian Hunt is recovering. Jonah sees the chart, realizes the name on it, and approaches the bed. The real Brian wakes up, and the two men stare at each other as the confrontation finally becomes unavoidable. Mia has learned the truth about Jonah and, after stealing the car keys, abruptly drives off on her own. Kevin returns from the East Wing traumatized, having failed to find Eve and Alex, and having just killed his own brother to spare him a worse death. The hour opens at the hospital with the amnesiac Brian finally cornered by the real man whose identity he has been using. The confrontation turns physical almost immediately. The imposter revealed to be Jonah overpowers the real Brian Hunt and kills him. Mia witnesses the aftermath and flees in panic, leaving Jonah to cover up what he has done and rejoin the others as tensions inside the hospital continue to escalate. Kevin and Adrian soon realize that Mia is gone and that the vehicle and keys are missing, leaving them stranded. While searching the hospital for another way out, Kevin makes a disturbing discovery. Dr. Bailey has restrained a patient and is deliberately exposing him to the mist, convinced that controlled sacrifice will help him understand its effect. Kevin confronts the doctor, but Bailey subdues him instead. Kevin is drugged, taped, and strapped down, then left alone to endure the mist and the terrifying visions it induces. After a harrowing stretch in which Kevin is helpless and disoriented, Adrian and the others track him down. They break into the room and free Kevin during a violent struggle that results in Dr. Bailey's death. Kevin survives, but is left badly shaken and weakened by the ordeal. At the mall, Eve attempts to maintain order by creating hope where little exists. She secretly prints flyers claiming that rescue is coming, and the message begins to circulate among the trapped survivors. During a supply run, Alex is attacked and locked inside a small back room. Someone pours flammable liquid outside and sets the room on fire, trapping her as smoke and flames quickly spread. Jay manages to break through and pull Alex out, suffering burns in the process. Despite being saved, Alex immediately suspects Jay's motives, convinced the attack may have been staged to make him appear heroic. Even so, the flyers claiming outside help briefly lift morale throughout the mall. Nathalie Raven continues gaining influence with her calm, authoritative explanation of the mist as a natural and necessary force. Connor listens closely as her conviction grows stronger. Father Romanov struggles to keep the group united, but Link becomes increasingly alarmed by Nathalie's hold over the others. He lures her into the attic under false pretenses and attempts to intimidate and silence her. Nathalie fights back, breaking a window and turning the tables. She escapes, leaving Link trapped in the attic and further deepening the fractures within the church group. Meanwhile, Mia drives alone through the mist to her childhood home, intent on retrieving a hidden supply she believes will help her survive. Inside, she confronts her mother, who is overwhelmed by despair and urges Mia to give up. Mia refuses, but discovers that the stash she came for has already been disturbed and is no longer there. Angry and shaken, she leaves the house and drives back toward the hospital, still determined to survive. As the episode closes, conditions at the hospital rapidly deteriorate. The power fails, security systems shut down, and exterior doors begin to open on their own. The mist starts creeping into the building, forcing Kevin and the others to scramble for safety. They attempt to access the psychiatric ward, believing it can be sealed off, but are unable to get inside as the mist advances through the corridors. Kevin and the small group fleeing the hospital barely make it into the psych ward wing as the mist closes in behind them. An orderly named Nash stops them at the entrance, suspicious that they might be part of the mist, but he softens when Mia identifies herself as Anna's daughter. He lets them inside, brings them toward a room, and apologizes to Mia by telling her there was nothing bad in her mother. Kevin, still affected by the drugs Bailey gave him, collapses once they're sheltered. Inside, the strain between Mia and Jonah, still being called Brian by most of the group, flaring immediately. Jonah is furious that she ran earlier. Mia is furious that he lied about who he was. After the initial fight, Mia slips into the pharmacy and finds what she's been looking for, medication to force a rapid detox. She confronts Jonah and lays out what she knows. She met the real Brian at the hospital. She admits she went to her mother's house, where Anna tried to help her die. But Mia changed her mind and realized she wants to live. Wanting to be someone Jonah can trust, she insists on going through rapid detox and needs Jonah to tie her down and refuse to release her, no matter how much she begs, because the process is agonizing. He reluctantly agrees, strapping her to a bed in a distant room as the blockers take effect, and she begins screaming in pain. At the mall, the food situation continues to deteriorate. Gus Redmond secretly eats hidden candy in his office before being pulled away to break up a fight over rations. He warns the group they are down to roughly 2 days of food, and tries to reassure them that the military is coming. Eve, worried about Alex spending time with Jay's group, quietly distributes battery-powered walkie-talkies, slipping one into Gus's area, while borrowing board games and giving another to Kimmy for her faction. Back with her people, Eve bluntly states how close they are to collapse, warning they are only 9 meals away from anarchy. At the church, Nathalie's injuries are treated while she hums softly, recalling past domestic violence. Connor confronts Father Romanov, accusing him of responsibility for what happened to Nathalie and interpreting his refusal to eat as guilt. Connor beats Romanov in front of Nathalie. Back in the psych ward, Adrian and Tyler share a quiet moment. Tyler confesses the worst thing he has ever done, attacking and humiliating a gay boy who smiled at him, then carrying the shame after the boy never reported it. Adrian forgives him, and the two lie together, holding each other. Unseen, Nash watches from outside the room. Romanov later thanks Link for his sacrifice and then speaks with Nathalie, finding her reading the Bible for the first time. Romanov admits he knew what Link planned to do and allowed it. He proposes a trial by ordeal, and whoever dies will reveal whom nature favors. Nathalie agrees. Before the congregation, she emerges naked, and she and Romanov step into the mist as the doors close behind them. As Mia's detox intensifies, she screams and pleads to be released, but Jonah refuses. He repeats those words to Mia, trying to guide her through the worst of the pain until it finally eases enough for him to untie her and help her recover. He alerts Kevin. Nash flees and locks himself in the pharmacy, where Adrian is tied up on the floor. But Nash insists Adrian must die. After a brutal struggle, Kevin kills Nash, beating him to death with a chair leg. Outside the church, the trial ends quickly. Surround Romanov, and one shoots him with an arrow. She then walks back into the church alone, wrapped in a blanket, while sparing her. Kevin prepares to leave the hospital with the survivors, including Adrian, Jonah, and Mia, but Tyler refuses to go. Adrian takes Tyler's hand, admitting he has always wanted to do that, then leaves with the group while Tyler stays behind in tears. Kevin Copeland, Mia Lambert, Adrian Garf, and Brian Hunt drive deeper into the mist in an attempt to reach the mall, where Kevin believes his family may still be alive. The journey is dangerous and increasingly tense, and they soon realize they are running out of gas. With no alternative, they plan to siphon fuel along the way. On the road, they encounter Vic, the man who was previously expelled from the mall. Despite reservations, they allow him to join them rather than leave him to the mist. When they pass Adrian's neighborhood, he insists on stopping at his house to check on his parents. Inside, Adrian finds his mother dead. His father is still alive, but the reunion quickly devolves into a volatile confrontation. The argument becomes deeply personal, with Adrian's father attacking him verbally over his sexuality. The conflict escalates, and Adrian kills his father. When Kevin arrives moments later, Adrian is injured and initially claims that his father attacked him and that he acted in self-defense. Kevin tries to calm him and assess the situation. Under pressure, Adrian finally breaks down and confesses the truth to Kevin. He was the one who raped Alex Copeland. The revelation shatters Kevin, and before he can react further, Adrian strikes him and leaves him unconscious inside the house. Adrian flees, leaving the door open and allowing the mist to flood in around Kevin. Attery, Poller, Jew, and Adrian later rejoins the others and lies, telling them that his father killed Kevin, leading them to believe Kevin is dead. While siphoning gas nearby, Mia and Jonah Dixon give in to impulse and have sex, even as the danger around them remains immediate and unresolved. Back at the mall, Alex Copeland and Jay Heisel grow closer, and Shelley DeWitt witnesses them kissing. Eve Copeland reacts swiftly and decisively, locking Jay inside a storage locker beneath the loading dock. Jay is left trapped and hidden from the rest of the group, effectively removing him from Alex's life and from the mall community. Shelley's own actions come to light when she confesses to Gus Redwick that she deliberately started the earlier fire with the intent of killing Alex. Gus threatens to expose her, and Shelley counters by revealing that she knows Gus has been secretly hoarding food. When Shelley attempts to reveal the truth anyway, Gus kills her. When others arrive and question what happened, Gus claimed he discovered Shelley's body and says he saw Alex fleeing the area, successfully shifting suspicion onto Alex. At the church, Nathalie Raven tightens her grip on the remaining congregation. Having survived her earlier encounter with the mist, she speaks with authority about the coming Black Spring and presents it as an unavoidable reckoning. She convinces Connor Heisel and several others to follow her to the mall. Those who refuse are left behind. As Nathalie's group departs, the church is set on fire, killing everyone who stayed behind. By the end of the episode, Kevin is missing and believed dead by the group traveling with Adrian. Nathalie and her followers are moving toward the mall after destroying the church and murdering those who refused. After being attacked and left for dead at Adrian Garf's house, Kevin Copeland is found by Vic, who stayed behind. As they regroup, Kevin reveals what he has learned. Adrian was the one who raped Alex Copeland. Determined to return to the mall and find his family, Kevin and Vic move through the neighborhood, cautiously traveling from house to house to avoid the mist. They enter a home occupied by soldiers and discover that most of them are dead, with only one survivor remaining. The man suddenly detonates a grenade, killing himself and opening the structure to the mist outside. As the mist floods in, Kevin experiences intense hallucinations. He sees apparitions of Brian Hunt, Mike, and Nash accusing and confronting him, followed by a vision of himself. Overwhelmed, Kevin attacks the apparition before he and Vic manage to escape the house. They steal a military vehicle and drive back to the mall. Inside the mall, fear and anger continue to escalate. Gus Bradley, chaos, and agree she should be expelled into the mist. Eve Copeland desperately tries to protect her daughter, but is unable to stop the group. Elsewhere in the mall, Wes confronts Jonah, knocks him unconscious, and takes him prisoner. By the end of the episode, Kevin has returned to the mall unaware of what has happened inside. Eve and Alex are imprisoned and facing an uncertain fate. Inside the mall, Eve Copeland and Alex Copeland are being held in a storage room with Jay Heisel, guarded by Brian. Alex confronts Jay, still believing he assaulted her, while Brian violently attacks Jay and claims to have proof that Jay raped Alex, insisting DNA evidence confirms it. Jay denies the accusation and pleads to be believed, but remains trapped as tensions escalate. Connor Heisel arrives at the mall with Nathalie Raven. Nathalie urges Connor to accept that sacrifices may be necessary to end the mist. Gus, who has positioned himself as the mall's authority figure, meets privately with Connor and explains that Eve has been hiding Jay. Gus also reveals that the crowd is demanding Alex be expelled, blaming her for recent deaths and chaos. Connor agrees not to interfere with Gus's plans if Gus hands Jay over to him. Elsewhere, Kevin Copeland, who survived being attacked, moves through the upper levels of the mall and reunites with Mia Lambert. Kevin reveals that Adrian Garf raped Alex and tried to kill him to keep it secret. They separate to find help and stop Adrian. Jonah Dixon, who has been detained, is released by Wes, but is told he must go with Wes to Arrowhead to speak with Dr. Bruin about his identity. When Mia finds them, Jonah refuses to stay, tells her they can't be together, and leaves with Wes. Connor retrieves Jay from the storage room under the guise of helping him. Instead, he leads Jay to an exterior door and speaks cryptically about Black Spring. Overcome with emotion and unable to face the truth, Connor shoves Jay into the mist and seals the door, sacrificing his son while Nathalie looks on. In the mall's main area, the situation turns violent. As the crowd argues over Alex's fate, Kimi speaks out against the mob's cruelty. Hal silences her by shooting her dead, shocking those nearby but solidifying the mob's control. Kevin confronts Adrian and brutally beats him, demanding to know where his family is. Adrian directs Kevin toward the lobby confrontation, and then escapes by starting a fire. Gus orders Eve and Alex to leave the mall. Eve desperately pleads with Connor and finally reveals the truth. Connor is Alex's biological father, and Eve admits she tried to keep Alex and Jay apart because of it. The revelation changes nothing. The crowd recoils, and Eve and Alex are forced outside, with Kevin and a few others following. The mist immediately attacks Alex, flowing into her body as she struggles to breathe. Jay suddenly reappears, having survived briefly in the fog, and pulls Alex free. The mist surges again and kills Jay as the others manage to get Alex into a vehicle. As they flee, Kevin tells Alex the truth that Adrian, not Jay, raped her. Kevin abruptly stops the vehicle and reverses it into the mall's entrance, smashing the doors open and allowing the mist to flood inside. Chaos erupts as the mob is consumed. Connor runs to the car, responds when Alex calls out to him, and joins Eve, Kevin, and Alex as they escape together. Inside the mall, Nathalie experiences horrifying visions of Benedict and their dead child. She cradles the infant and breastfeeds it as it drains her life away, leaving her dead. Kyle is killed by a creature that coils around his neck, and Gus barricades himself alone in his office. Wes and Jonah drive away, unaware that Adrian has hidden in the back of their vehicle. Kevin continues driving until he reaches a train station, where he witnesses soldiers forcing captive people off a train and into the mist. Realizing the fog is being deliberately fed with human lives, Kevin understands that the danger extends far beyond the mall as the episode ends.